Hi, Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Wednesday, November the 2nd. Well, it's the time of the year when the University of Arkansas takes a picture of the political pulse of Arkansas through its Arkansas poll. The results were released this morning, and if you're from my end of the political spectrum, or even in the middle, I think that it's not a very pretty picture. And let's run down it. Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, 59 to 36 among Arkansas voters. Republican Senator John Boozman, largely unknown to Republican voters, nonetheless is favored 61 to 38 over Democrat Connor Eldridge. Our conservative voters are a little friendlier toward pot. However, medical marijuana, issue 6, the constitutional amendment, enjoys a narrow 51-49 lead. This is probably why the Hutchinson administration is having a news conference every day to talk about the evils of medical marijuana and helping sick people. This Arkansas poll was the first in which people who identified themselves as Republicans outnumbered those who identified themselves as Democrats, 34 to 26%. Another 36% were independent, but most of those lean conservative, so it's functionally speaking, it's become solidly red state. Interestingly enough, on a couple of hot button issues, abortion and guns, people are pretty well happy with the laws the way they are, although very narrowly split. They don't want stronger regulations against abortions. They don't want stronger regulations against guns than currently exist either. One other interesting finding in the social issue category, 33% of the people in Arkansas are willing to accept same-sex marriage. Unfortunately, for those that don't want it, it is the law of the land now, so we can be happy about that. Democrats and other progressives aren't going quietly into the dark night of the new conservative Arkansas. The Democratic Party or its representatives have filed a suit against the Republican election commissioner in Jefferson County for appointing himself as a poll watcher, wearing two hats that shouldn't be allowable under the law because he's the one that judges where voters are or are not qualified to vote. Also, the ACLU has written a stern letter to Mark Martin about his purge of 7,000 voters from voter rolls around the state using a badly put together list of names of people who were supposedly ineligible. Many of them were not. So they're trying to retain the right to vote in Arkansas, at least for people who are of the Democratic persuasion. We'll see how that works out. A Little Rock lawyer, Jack Wagner, is expected to file a motion in federal court today calling for a judge to order better notice at polling places that issue 7, the Medical Marijuana Initiated Act, has been thrown off the ballot by the Arkansas Supreme Court. There's very little notice about it. There's been a great deal of confusion. A lot of people who voted early wouldn't have voted for 7 and would have voted for 6, the amendment, had they known what would happen. Anyway, this is another line of legal attack. If nothing else, it will call attention to the fact that there's only one issue remaining on the ballot at this moment. That's issue 6. The Supreme Court has not yet said whether it will have a rehearing of its decision to remove issue 7, but nobody's really expecting them to do that. I mentioned school spending yesterday. The Senate did finish today approving a compromise that will increase state spending for education by 1.2% a year for each of the next 2 years. Governor Asa Hutchinson apparently agrees with this plan. This is only about half of the spending that the Bureau of Legislative Research came up with a recommendation for. It's supposedly to meet the constitutional standards of adequacy. We'll see if there'll be a fight about that before long. The forces who wanted more money for special education only got about $6 million of the $20 million they hoped to get. On the state money front, by the way, the state revenue report came out today. The first 4 months of the year, money came in at a little bit better rate in October, but we're still behind for the year. We're still below the forecast. That means at this moment we don't have enough to meet budget if this continues. It's going to be hard to cut taxes and raise spending at the same time on the current level of performance. Sad ruling yesterday in Circuit Court in Little Rock. Judge Chris Piazza turned down Mike Wilson's suit that tried to bring an end to what I believe is unconstitutional pork barreling by the Arkansas legislature. They came up with a scam to launder money through economic development districts as a means of continuing to designate state money for local pet projects of the legislators. The judge said that if these economic development districts are properly set up, it's not his place to say anything about how the money is spent once it gets there. It's a shame. This will open the door to more legislative boondoggles and pork barrels, and that's a shame. Little Rock police surrounded a motel out in southwest Little Rock for 3 hours a day, finally forced their way into a room where an armed man had been holed up for about 3 hours. Nobody was hurt. He was apparently somebody who was wanted in multiple jurisdictions for a variety of potential crimes. The thing created a huge mess in I-30 traffic, the looky-loos stopping to see what was going on. Go to our Arkansas blog and find a link to Rock Candy, another of our blogs where Leslie Newell Peacock has talked about really far-thinking ideas by 5 acclaimed architectural firms about expanding and improving the Arkansas Arts Center. The big question is really whether the supposed $60 million expected to be raised for this project is enough to do the job justice. It would be really great if we had somebody like an Alice Walton who'd step in with a huge philanthropic gift and give us an arts center that would really be a place for the whole world to come to see. Also, probably one other small item of note on that Arkansas poll I forgot to mention. The poll found that of the 800 people they interviewed, 41% of them never, not one day, not ever, read a daily newspaper. Maybe that's why we're voting for Donald Trump. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.